welcome back to Study with Additti. My name is Additti and this channel is dedicated to revision tips and tricks along with much more to help make your schooling life a whole lot easier. In this video I'm going to be talking about how to revise economics. For those of you that don't already know, I do economics A-level, and in the past I have done videos like economics summer reading. That video I can link above in the little I. Since my school didn't provide GCSE, I haven't done GCSE. So my tips are only limited to A-level. So I don't know, I think GCSE might just be a step back from these A-level tips. For anyone who has done economics GCSE, please leave any comments, any tips that you have for economics GCSE down below so that we can all help each other in this little community. So this video is going to be structured very similar to my other how to revise videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have like a content and notes section, and then I'm going to have a practice questions section and how to answer practice questions. So let's get into it. So for content and notes for economics, I think there's two main ways that you can go about making your notes or just revising in general. So first one is making flashcards. If you watch my how to revise science videos, you will know that I made extensive flashcards on all the topics. I think these flashcards are really good because they break down the topic, and you can have as many flashcards as you like, and they're really they're condensed, but not too condensed that it hurts your brain looking at it. It's kind of like it's condensed enough for you to learn the information rather than looking at a page of notes. But don't get me wrong, the second way to revise for economics, I think, is using notes. So that would be like on a lined piece of paper, or you could even use mind maps, whatever suits you. Personally, I don't like mind maps, but I think they all come under notes rather than flashcards. I think for economics, personally, I'm going to be doing notes and flashcards because notes are better for the longer concepts, which you may use like, I don't know, 5 flashcards to get it on. And a lot of the time when you have to link, it's a bit harder to do that on flashcards. So for concepts like that, I think I'll use notes. But for the smaller concept, for the easier concepts perhaps, I'm going to use flashcards. But obviously that's my own opinion. I'm just trying to recommend things to you. So I mean, just do whatever you think works for you, but make sure you experiment and you try different things. At the beginning I was like, okay, I'm just going to go with notes because I think economics is more of a concept subject, blah blah blah. So I started going with just notes, but then I realised, looking back at my GCSE grades for science and all the subjects that I used flashcards for, I did quite well in those, and I think that's because I was able to remember the information more clearly using these flashcards. I mean, if you prefer notes, you do notes. I'm not trying to change your revision method. I'm just trying to recommend things to you, and if you haven't already found your revision method, I suggest trying some of these things out and finding what actually works for each different subject. Because honestly, I have different revision methods for each subject. I'm not going to use this revision method for another subject which is a totally different subject. You know, like, subjects are different and you can't necessarily use the same revision method for each. Now I'm going to use a combination of both flashcards and notes. Another key point within contents and notes is using diagrams. If you don't already know, there are a lot of diagrams in economics, and if you're not going to put them in your notes, you're not going to remember them. So make sure you do include diagrams in your notes, and make sure that you do understand what they are when you look back at your notes. Another really good thing to put in your notes is examples. You can save yourself time by not doing wider reading, especially if you don't want to do it at university, by getting examples and putting them in your notes so it looks like you've done that wider reading when you apply them in questions when you may not have. Like, let's be real, we all have limited time and we can't do masses and masses of wider reading on every single subject. If you use relevant examples in your notes, then you can just whip them out on the exam and it looks like you actually know what you're talking about. This textbook is really good for economics. It covers both AS and A-level, and it's really quite good at giving examples, and it gives like data response questions. It's really good. It is quite expensive, but to be honest, I have a really used one, and while it's kind of ugly, it's still okay. Like, it's still usable, and to be honest, that's what I really want. So try and get that if you can, because they've got really good examples and they're quite up to date. So that's it for notes. Now we're going to be discussing practice questions. So for practice questions, I do Edexcel, by the way. I'm sorry I forgot to mention this at the start, but I do Edexcel A level, and I think it's the 2015 spec, something like that. It's Edexcel A. So what my exam board requires everyone to do is 4 different things in practice questions. So the very first thing is knowledge and understanding. So that can be tested in the form of definition questions. So kind of just make sure that you have a good sound understanding of the topic that you're writing about and just economics in general. So I'd say it's definitely worth learning your definitions. Make like a memorize or a Quizlet if you're about Quizlet. But even if you want to do paper flashcards, but make sure you do learn those definitions however you do them. The second thing that the exam board wants is application. So application is using certain concepts and techniques within a specific context. So application questions test if you can use certain concepts and techniques within certain contexts. And so for example, that can be tested through a calculation or the use of a formula. The third thing that they want is analysis. Analysis would be building a chain of reasoning and explaining your points. It elaborates on the causes of something and also the consequences. One way that you can show the examiner that you're really analysing is using words like so or because they're linking words and they show that you have, again, that chain of reasoning, like step by step, you know what you're doing. And now the fourth thing is evaluation. This is the one that students find the most hard, and to be honest, I am guilty of that too. I think I can do the other things, but not necessarily evaluation. So these are the points that you kind of need to cover for evaluation. So within evaluation, there's balance and there's judgment. One thing that the exam board have said is that if you go to judgment before you go to balance, it shows that the answer in general is very, very poor. So make sure you do balance first and then judgment. So having balance in an extended piece of writing, i.e. the longer questions, is making sure you can see both sides of the argument. So that might be strengths and weaknesses, or winners and losers, or even short run and long run. So then you have to move on to judgment, and judgment is coming to a decision based on your balance. So obviously you can't come to a judgment before you make those balanced points. That's what the exam board are trying to say when they say don't do judgment first. So that means weighing the evidence up. Your concluding paragraph should have evaluation in it, but if you wanted to put evaluative points before that in your balance arguments, then you can, and I think that's quite a good idea because it shows that you are evaluating along the way. Even if it's like a sentence, that's quite good because, I mean, if you think about it as well, if you run out of time during the exam, at least you still have that evaluation in there. But I mean, if you think you won't, if you're good at timing, then perhaps just do a concluding paragraph with evaluation at the end. So for example, some evaluation points might be like short run or long run, public or private interest, or even significance. So, I mean, just think about those things. There's a few more as well, but those are just some examples. Marks actually carry quite a lot of the marks in the exam as a total, so make sure you get good at this. One more thing I'm going to say on practice questions is make sure you do diagrams and make sure those diagrams link back to your point, which link back to the question. So there's no point of just being like, oh, this is shown in the following diagram. Yes, that's good, but you have to build on that and you have to write a few more sentences explaining the diagram and linking back to your point. So yeah, that's all I have to say on how to revise economics. If you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe and hit the bell icon while you're at it. Smash the like button if you found that useful, and I hope to see you in another video. Bye!